Ladies and gentlemen, we're here live from the Fountain Hill Stickball Network studios. I'm your Commissioner, Ryan Anderson. With us today for the second episode of Commissioner's Corner, Zach Glagola. Zach, thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me. It's great to be back in town.
All right, for those of you who don't know, Zach will give a brief introduction here. He's the captain of the Toon Squad team from last year. He's a Golden Glove winner from 2012. Zach, we're going to get right into it here. We're going to talk about last year. We're going to talk about the offseason. We're going to talk about moving forward. Now, last year, you guys got off to a great start to start the season. You guys slowed down going towards the end of the year. Now, can you talk a little bit about what happened there? What were the key things that happened and what played a role in you guys not being as effective down the main stretch last season?
All right, like you said, we did get off to a really hot start. I had high hopes for this team from day one, right after the draft. During that hot start, I'm going to take some responsibility for that, and I was batting really high. During the losing streak, my batting went down. I wasn't getting on base for the people behind me. So I'm going to take some responsibility for that. Also, attendance was an issue. I'm not going to use that as an excuse. People stepped up for the team, started making plays. It just didn't go our way last year.
Okay, so, I like his accountability there. He really put the team on his back with that one. But, as an onlooker, not being on your team, I mean, let's face it, you guys really lost some key players. Kyle Lachlan, he was, a power hitter, great defensive player for you at that third base spot. And he wasn't able to make the last couple games when you really needed him. I mean, it was a short season that first year, and that's huge. I mean, you can blame it on account or yourself not batting as high as you want, but I think that was really key. And moving forward with these keeper picks, you made a couple controversial decisions that the stickball community has really outlashed from. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about all your keepers. You kept Alex Specht. Talk about Alex. What was he able to provide for you guys last year?
Keeping Alex Specht was a no-brainer. He was my number one pick last year. Mm-hmm. He provides offense, average power. When he's on the base, he's fast.
Yep.
He's athletic. In the field, locks down shortstop, one of the main positions in stickball. So that was really a no-brainer.
He's a stickball player.
All league.
Plain and simple. Now Kyle Lachlan, let's go into him. We already mentioned him, all home run hitter. Your decision to keep him. What was the mindset going with that?
Once again, that was an easy decision. The only real decision with that was attendance. Like you said, that was an issue last year, towards the end of the year. I talked to him. We squared that off. Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be fine for him. So, he's power.
Okay.
Locks down another important position in the infield at third base.
Right. Josh Knight, too. I mean, he led the league in batting average last year. Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, all league. It seems like your top three guys were no-brainers. Yeah. Now, the rest of your roster from 2012, there were some decisions to be made. You ended up going with Nick Pat and Petro and Brad Vangelli, two guys who play Salisbury baseball for the high school. There's reports coming in they might miss, close to half the year because of the baseball schedule. What was the thought process there on keeping them?
Like we keep mentioning, attendance last year was an issue, so that was a big decision for me. The decision got helped out by 3 of my players from last year not signing up. So I was left with 4 players to decide from, and even though they're going to miss potentially half the games, with the expanded roster, with a top 2 pick in this year's draft, I decided the benefit I'll get from them is worth the risk of not having them.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that the expanded roster played a key role in keeping those 2 guys with the team. Now, like you said, you lost Eric Rao, Brian Redding. Now, there's some different opinions on the importance of the pitcher position in stickball. I'm one to think that, it's a key position. I mean, they got to know how to pitch in stickball. Mm-hmm. You have a huge hole to fill there. How draft strategy wise, I mean, there's not too many guys who stand out as pitchers in this league. Do you have any game plan moving forward on how to fill that hole?
Yeah, losing those two guys. They're two of the ones that did not sign up again this year, and they're all-star pitchers right there. It's a big loss, but honestly, I don't place that high of value on the pitching. That could come back and bite me in the butt, if you want to say. I'm just gonna play it by ear in the draft, see what happens.
Okay.
You know?
So you've had some bad luck. You lost Brian Redding. You lost Eric Rao. You also lost Jay Conklin. He was an all-league catcher. You're going to have to fill that hole. Catcher's not too huge of a position. But your decisions to be made were lessened by the guys who left. So you're either going to have, now considering you tied the Monarchs with the worst record in the league last year, you're going to either have the 1 or 2 draft pick in this upcoming draft on April 19th. That's a huge decision to make. I mean, have you thought about how you're going to research what player to take? There's a lot of talented athletes coming in this year. We got Justin Rivera, Joey Orlando, Shane Hutchinson, just to name a few at the top of the list. I don't want to leave anybody out, but are you going to talk to those guys prior to the draft to get a feel for what type of players they are, what type of guys they are off the field, and what type of teammates they are?
Yeah, I'm going to have some scouts out.
Okay.
I'm talking to teammates, some of my keepers already.
Uh-huh.
We're going to send some guys out, talk to them, get their interest level in the league, get their commitment, because that's going to be an important part of my drafting process.
Okay.
Is the commitment of these players.
Fair enough. Let's get into, I want to know how well you know your team. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions here and see if you really do know the Toon Squad.
All right.
All right. So question number 1 here. Out of the players, now this is from the Toon Squad, from the 2012 roster.
All right.
Out of the players that played 5 or more games for you last year, which player had the second least at-bats with 20, but still a big offensive production with 3 home runs and 8 RBIs? So 5 or more games, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs. Any predictions? Any guesses?
3 home runs, you said?
3 home runs.
I'm either thinking Brad Vangelli, but I don't know if he went to 5 games. So I'm going to go with Kyle Lachlan.
All right. Well, that's 1 for 1. So you got that right. You're skating along pretty good here. 1 more here. Well, 2 more. There were only 5 players that made each and every game for your team. Which player was tied for second in hits, but had a strikeout one strikeout the whole season, but was second in hits on your team? This is a little tougher one.
Made every game? Is that?
Made every game.
Made every game.
So there's some hints within the questions.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the sleeper pick here.
Okay.
This is one of the guys that did not sign up, if I'm not mistaken.
You're on the right path. He's on the right path.
I believe it was Jake Conklin.
You're 2 for 2. All right. It seems like you know your team pretty well so far. One more question. Which player had the second most runs with 13 and was second in doubles with 6, but 5th in batting average, batting .378?
This is a good question, Ryan.
Is it?
Yeah, that was me.
Wow, 3 for 3.
You think I don't know my stats?
Well, hey, you know, these questions had to be asked.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question that I asked him about Colin Hutchinson. He has a tough decision to make with that number 1 pick. If Colin gets that number 1 pick, do you think he's just going to say, well, you know, I'm going to go with my brother? Or do you think he's going to do more research and he might skip on his brother?
That is a tough decision for Colin.
Yeah, it is.
I like Tim's answer. He said family first.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Shane is such a great player, it's not that he's just picking his brother.
Yeah.
And losing out on a great player.
I agree.
Shane's talent level is up there with the best of them. So.
Well put. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for the second episode of Commissioner's Corner. Thanks for joining us, Zach. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks.
Hopefully we'll be able to get together in the future. Check us out on YouTube, Fountain Hill Stickball Network.